Hi, everybody. Lawyer Autumn Whit Boyd here. I'm recording the last podcast episode of 2021, and I'm announcing that this will probably be our last podcast episode for the near future. We are actually wrapping up the Legal Roadmap podcast for the time being. I'm not going to say never. I may pop back in here if we have a big change in the law or something I really want to talk about. You may see things come back on your feed. But for now, we are pausing the podcast. And I wanted to close it out by sharing with you basically what I think are the most important things that I have learned in 5 years of being an online business owner, working with online business owners, working with hundreds of coaches, course creators, designers, all kinds of online entrepreneurs. I want to share with you the most important things that I want you to know legally. So if you only listen to one episode, this is going to be a good one. I want to start out by just saying, if you have not watched other videos or if you've not listened to the podcast before, hi, I'm Autumn Whit Boyd. I am an attorney. I've been an attorney since 2004. I started my own firm in 2015, so about 5 years ago, almost 6 years ago. I was a law clerk to a judge. I worked at a big firm here in Chattanooga, Tennessee, where I live. I worked at a small firm doing copyright litigation, so suing mostly textbook publishers, representing photographers and stock photography agencies, helping them protect their copyrights. And then frankly, in 2015, I had small children. I have twin boys. They're 9 now. They were, I guess, 3 or 4 then. I was not seeing them enough. I was not home enough. I was traveling a lot and I was just working like a crazy person. So I decided to start my own firm to really kind of take control of my own destiny. My husband is also an entrepreneur, David, and he really encouraged me, thought that I could go out on my own and do as well or better than I had done at other firms. And so I started the firm in 2015, really working with creative entrepreneurs from the get-go, and then got into the online space pretty quickly. I started listening to podcasts, I started meeting people, and I found that it really was my blue ocean. There were a lot of really creative people doing interesting things that I liked talking to, and there were not a lot of other lawyers in this space. That is a little bit different today. There's still not a ton of lawyers in this space. But I feel like I was kind of on the front edge of this online education boom that we continue to see. You know, I'm recording this in December 2020. Since we've had the COVID pandemic, online education just, I feel like, is booming more than ever before. So I'm excited to be part of that. I launched the Legal Roadmap podcast I went and looked it up on November 10, 2016. And I had just had a third child, our daughter Vivian, who's now 4.5. She was not even 6 months old. She was born in April of that year. And so looking back and thinking through what led to that, I really wanted to share all the things that I was learning and seeing. We now especially work with a lot of the biggest names in the business. And I was seeing behind the scenes. I was seeing when things went wrong. I was seeing where a little planning went a long way. And if people hadn't done things the right way, what the consequences were, what it looked like to play out in reality. And so that's why I started the podcast. I really wanted to share those stories, share those lessons. The first season of the podcast, if you go back and listen to the first 12 episodes, I really put them together. I used to joke it was like the course that I was too lazy to put together. But it really, it holds up to this day. Those are really the foundational concepts that I think every online and creative business needs to know. If you're new, I was just actually talking with a client today who's been in business about 7 or 8 years. And she told me, she said, Autumn, I know you think that I'm further along and I know all these things, but I'm still learning all of this legal stuff too. So even if you are not a new business, there may be things that you have not taken care of or not addressed. So that was how I launched the podcast, and we did seasons in the beginning, and then I enjoyed doing it so much that we've been in a weekly rhythm for several years. And the law firm side of our business has really taken off, and I'm excited to dedicate more of my attention and time there to working with our larger clients. Then we've also really grown our contract template shop. At awbfirm.com, you can find that. We now have a full-time marketing director working on helping us spread the good word about our contract templates. So we're going to be focusing more time there. The podcast is going to pause. I will still be sharing things. If we're not connected on Instagram or Facebook, I'm posting there frequently and love interacting with people. So I won't be going away, just kind of shifting our focus away from the podcast to some other avenues. But so what I want to share in this final wrap up podcast episode and video is, the most important things that I want you to know. What seeing behind the scenes in hundreds of creative and online businesses, what I have learned. So I want to start just by saying, a little bit about me. Why do I wake up energized and excited every day to work with our clients and support people and answer questions and share our knowledge? And I really have a drive for online business owners to never make another expensive legal mistake. That's what I have in the back of my mind every time I'm answering a question, every time I'm creating a new resource. I have seen a lot of expensive mistakes. And so I want to help prevent those. I like a proactive approach. So here at the AWB firm, our purpose, we believe that entrepreneurs can build sustainable, profitable businesses that will allow them to create the life of their dreams. That's what running this business has done for me. It's given me flexibility. It's given me control or autonomy. I get to decide what I work on. I get to decide who I work with. When I was at the law firm, if we had a really jerky client, I didn't get to say no. That wasn't my call. We have a no jerks policy here at the AWB firm. And I know a lot of the people that I work with, the people that I see starting online businesses, you're looking for these same things. It's also allowed me to put some of my values to work. So something we've been working on, especially this year, is bringing equity into the conversation, bringing diversity into the conversation, really living out our values in a way that is sometimes hard to do when you're working for someone else or when you're working in a big corporation. And then I wanted to make more money, frankly. I wanted to start building wealth for my family and for future generations. The last firm that I worked in, I was not an equity partner. I was paid well for my time and energy, but it wasn't going up. And I didn't really want to be partners with the people who were running that firm. We didn't share our same values. We didn't have the same approach to the law. You may think it's all the same, but different lawyers take a very different method of attack when they're dealing with different things or advising clients on the best next step to take. So I really saw starting my own business as a way that I could stake my own flag in the ground and make as much money as I wanted to on my own terms without having to compromise those values. And so if these things are what led you to start your own business, and I've talked to hundreds of small business owners and we've talked about all these same things. Flexibility, control, bringing in your values, building wealth. Of course, my phone never rings until I'm recording. I'm going to pause. So if these are the things that led you to start your own business, I want to tell you that legal is a key cornerstone to building the sustainable, profitable business that's going to allow you to achieve all of these goals. So I want to go through, these are my lessons learned. These are the things I want you to know and I want you to take away and start applying in your own business. So number one is that legal does not have to be hard or complicated. The but that comes after that, kind of point 1A, is that you can't ignore it. Legal regulations, laws, rules, requirements, they are out there even if you ignore it. You can put your head in the sand. You can try and just, work your way around it. We have a lot of cowboys, I like to say, in the online business world who just don't worry about it and they say, I'll just pay the money later. But I will tell you that can really, really, it can put you out of business. It's not just, I'll pay the fine. It's not a problem. That approach is going to cost you in the long term, not only money, but also, it could cost you relationships. It could cost you clients and customers. It can have huge ramifications. So I have seen over and over that a little planning and spending a little bit of money on the front end, I don't think you have to spend all the money on the front end. I do not. Actually, I turned down a client today who is a friend and works at one of my other clients. And I said, I know you are creating this from the beginning. And I don't think that you spending a bunch of money on me doing a bunch of custom legal projects for you is the best place to put your dollars. And I was able to help him, kind of send him on his way with some guidance. That is really what I feel like most new business owners needs. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But a little planning, a small investment, a proportional investment, I'll talk about that more in a minute too, is going to go a long way. It is much cheaper and easier to do things the right way early on, and you can put things in place that will benefit you later on. The other thing about ignoring legal is that it's always going to be in the back of your mind. And I've talked to business owner after business owner who, after we put together a legal plan, after maybe we freshen up their contract or we register their trademark or we do that thing that they've been putting off for years, they say, oh, I just didn't realize what a weight off my shoulders this is. I have more confidence to go and do these big things, or I've been putting off starting this new thing because I was worried about that I wasn't legally protected. And so I think you might be surprised that doing things the right way legally, putting the right protections in place, taking those first couple of simple steps is going to be such a load off your mind. You're going to sleep better at night. You're going to be able to build your business and scale with more confidence. All right, second thing is contracts are the most important legal protection for most online and creative businesses. And I forgot my standard disclaimer, so I'll say it now. I am a lawyer. I am not your lawyer if you're watching this video or listening to this podcast. So please take everything just as information. This is not intended as legal advice. And this is an important one because reasonable minds may vary about what the most important legal protection is for your business. And, there are different businesses that maybe this would not apply to, but I will say for about 99.9% of the businesses that I work with, that I see, and we work with some, very large ones, contracts are still the key legal issue in their business. Why do we need to use contracts? Why do we worry about contracts? Why does it make me break out in a cold sweat when I talk to someone and they're not using contracts at all in their business? It is because when you are not using contracts, but you are entering into collaborations, or you are working with customers or providing services or selling products, you just leave yourself open to disagreements coming up later. Because maybe you had a conversation, maybe you had some emails, maybe you sent some instructions when you sent a product, but there is so much room for disagreements to come up later. And if it's not clearly spelled out in one place, reasonable minds can have different memories. So it's not crazy that, person A thinks we agreed to this and person B remembers it totally differently and thinks you agreed to something else. Or maybe you just never talked about it. I think contracts, especially for one-on-one services providers, kind of force you to have those hard conversations at the beginning. I just was doing a training today with a group of one-on-one consultants, and we were talking about refund policies. We were talking about how either side can terminate the coaching relationship. And several of them said, I'd never thought that I might want to fire a client. We talked about ownership of intellectual property. We talked about, outlining really clearly what you're agreeing to provide, payment schedules, all of that kind of stuff, the nuts and bolts of how you work with people. And just having that all spelled out makes it very clear. And it also gives both the client and you a chance to ask any questions to clear up maybe where you thought you were agreeing to A and they thought you were agreeing to B. So it makes everything run so much more smoothly to have contracts. And the other reason I say contracts are the most important legal protection is that almost every time that someone comes to me with a dispute or a problem, an issue that they need to resolve, the contract is at the crux. Even with like a copycat, we will often, a lot of my clients who are course creators or have run online memberships or, they're selling their content, basically, they're educators. A lot of their issues that pop up with copycats are people who were their students, who were in their course or who were a part of their membership or their online community. So ideally, if you're following my recommendation, you're going to have a contract with those people. And so you're not just relying on copyright law or trademark law to address the copycat issue. You can also put some guardrails around that in your contract. So I think people are sometimes surprised at how important their contracts are for really all of the different things that can go wrong in online business. So having that as a solid first step, I just can't overstate how many problems you will avoid. And then if you do find yourself in a tricky situation, it will help you get through it with so much more ease, so much more cheaply. It is just, I can't recommend it enough. I'll outline a couple other reasons why I just love contracts and how I see them benefit online businesses. It helps you get paid. So if you've got a clear payment schedule in your contract, there's no questions. It's very, very clear. It will help you deal with chargebacks. If you are, let's say you've got somebody on a payment plan and they do a chargeback later, or they maybe paid you in a lump sum and try to get a refund. If it's all spelled out there, very clearly in your contract, that's going to help you deal with the credit card dispute. It's going to help you when a client makes an unreasonable refund request, and you've got, very clear language in there saying when you do and do not give refunds. Another great thing about contracts is that it makes you seem more professional. It's going to up-level your entire business, really. It's going to help you with your sales process. So a lot of people think that, they've closed a sale when the client says yes. No, you've not closed the sale until that client has signed the contract and paid you. That is when they are actually a client. And so we do see sometimes people getting cold feet at that contract stage. And so if you've got a really clean, clear contract, it looks professional, it's easy to understand, it says all the same things that you had already talked about with the client, that is going to help you close that deal. It's going to give the potential client or customer a lot of confidence that you are going to do what you said you were going to do because your contract looks legit. You look professional. So it's going to really help you get past that hump in the sales process of getting the contract signed, getting going with a project. And it's going to help smooth out your client relationships. I get a lot of questions, especially from creatives, because I love creatives. I love working with you guys who are worried because they say, I don't want the contract to scare off the client, or I don't want it to, make our relationship awkward from the beginning, or I feel like a contract puts up a wall between me and the client. I want to be super collaborative. I want to really have a wonderful working relationship. And to that, I say, I love all of that. I agree. I want you to have all of those things. And what I have found in practice is that when you have a fair contract, and again, this is where our approach is maybe a little different from some other lawyers, but I am really a huge fan of contracts being pretty even-handed. I don't like a contract that really favors one side over the other, or really takes advantage of, the person signing the contract and puts a lot of terms in there that are really harsh and, trouble for them, could cause trouble for them. What I like is a fair, even-handed contract. And so when you send that to your client and they see, oh, this is reasonable, this is fair, this is what we've agreed to, it opens up your client to having trust in you, feeling confident in you. And because you're more protected, because that both sides, a good contract should really protect the client as much as it's protecting you. It frees everybody up to be creative. You're like, yeah, I don't need to worry about that because I know we've got it in the contract. I don't even have to think about it. It's not like in the back of your head making you worried. You can just move forward with ease. And that is really my goal. You are free to be as creative as you want to be. All right. I am a contract evangelist, but I will move on. The third thing I want to talk about is something I've been thinking about a lot, especially this year, which is how much legal protection, how many legal things you really need to do. And we started off this year, if you go back to the first episodes in season 5 in your podcast player, we talked all about the 4 stages of business. And if you want to listen to those episodes, if you're in your podcast player now, they're episodes 121 through 123, and we'll link them in the show notes. When you are just starting out your business, so you're in the kind of ideation phase, you're just thinking about things, you're testing a lot of things out, you're just getting started. The good news is your risks are very low. And I like to look at legal when, legal is really all about mitigating risk. How can we see what the potential risks are, and how can we try and either avoid them or make them less problematic, or maybe shift the risk to the other person? That's a lot of what contracts do. We decide, okay, there's a risk that something bad is going to happen. Who's going to take the hit if something bad happens? That's why we have refund policies. That's why we have all kinds of terms about how we end the relationship. We want to be really clear about that. We want to make that, delegate those risks, make it very clear so everyone knows what they're getting into. And then you can decide, do I like this risk? Do I want to take this risk? And so I've been thinking a lot this year, like I said, about proportionality. When you start a business, you look at your risks. You don't have much money in the bank, which feels terrible, but also it's kind of great because you don't have a lot to lose, frankly. You don't have a huge team that you're going to, put out on the street if you can't pay their next paycheck. It's just you. You're hoping you're not going to be out on the street, but usually nobody hustles harder than the founder. So you don't have probably, a building, an office like the one I'm sitting in that you're paying rent to, or a mortgage, a note on. Your risks are very low. And also, usually when you're just getting started out, you're not charging that much either. And so if a client engagement goes terribly wrong, and they ask for a refund, or maybe, they're unhappy, the amount of money at issue is just not that high. And so again, we look at the risks. And so when I think about what legal protections does a business need, I look at those levels of risk in the different phases of business. And again, you can go back and listen to those episodes for what different legal protections I think are absolutely essential at different stages of your business. Where can you maybe save a little money, spend a little later? But for all of the stages of business, there are some basic things that you might want to think about doing. So using a contract is one of them. I was just talking to this, the friend today who, I said, please don't spend a bunch of money on a bunch of custom legal projects, but let's do these couple of things. So things like making sure your website has a privacy policy, making sure you're complying with those rules and regulations, which is something you can do very easily and inexpensively on your own. Running a trademark search to make sure that you are not infringing anyone else's rights. That's really your biggest risk when it comes to trademarks in the beginning. So thinking about what are my risks. Now, I also like to think about it this way. When I talk to people about whether they need to set up an LLC or a corporation, we talk about risk as well. Because what that really does is it builds a fence around your business, and any risk that you have in the business for any of your business activities, and someone sues you or makes a claim against you, they can only get at the assets that are in the business, your business bank account, if you have a building or machinery or anything like that. But they can't come after your personal house. They can't come after your personal car. So that's what the LLC or the corporation does. And so I look at the kind of business when we're making this decision, because it costs money to set up an LLC. It's not free. There are yearly fees, there's setup costs. So I look at what is the risk and is it worth that cost? If you are a graphic designer working in your own home or your own apartment, you have no employees, you have no partners, you're just creating things out of your own brain and sending them to people over your computer, very, very low risk. The worst thing that could happen probably is that maybe you don't fulfill a client agreement or you copy someone else's work. But these are all things that are in your control. You can control those risks by doing the right thing, by not copying other people's work. At the other end of the spectrum, I mentioned I live in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We have a skydiving company here, and people go skydiving off the side of a mountain, which is terrifying to me, but some people love it. The risk of bodily injury and death is very significant with a business like that. Like if something goes wrong, it's going to go terribly wrong. And I'm not making light of that, to be clear. But when you look at the risk in that kind of business, it is very significant. And so I would want to do a lot of different protections for the skydiving business than I might want to do for the web designer or graphic designer working from her apartment. Even if they're at the same revenue level or even if they're at the same phase of business, because the risks are different. So when we look at proportionality, it's not just the phase of business or your revenue level. It could also be your business activities. But I hear a lot out there. There's a lot of scare tactics when people talk about legal for online business. And I'm not trying to throw shade on anybody. We're all just out here trying to do our best and help people protect their businesses. But I do think there's a lot of scary marketing about, you could lose your whole business if you don't register a trademark, or there terrible catastrophes could happen if you don't set up your LLC the right way. And what I want to encourage you to be thoughtful about, and this is what I do with my own clients, is to really look at your own business as an individual thing and look at your risks and look at where you are and what kinds of protections are really proportional and make sense at that point. And the cost should also be proportional. If you're just getting started, a template is a great investment. $5,000 custom contract, unless you've just got, huge amounts of resources is probably not a great investment. That money is probably better put to work doing something else for your new business. So thinking about proportionality, I want to encourage you to think about that with your own business when you're thinking about your legal risks and the legal protections that you really need. All right, number 4, and then I'm going to wrap up. I'm probably going to get a little emotional. Number 4 is that an attorney or a lawyer should be part of your team of trusted advisors as you grow. Again, I don't think that this is someone you need to hire right out of the gate unless caveat, there's always the exception to the rule. So if you came to me and you said, I've got $1 million in investor money put into this business and we're going to launch huge out of the gate, and this is my 4th business, I know what I'm doing, okay, fine. Maybe you do need a lawyer from day one. But for most businesses, you're bootstrapping, you're just figuring it out in the beginning. You do not need to pay a bunch of money to have a lawyer on your team. But as you grow, as you go through those stages of business, when you're starting to think about, maybe I need a bookkeeper, maybe I need a CPA or a tax professional to help me, maybe I need a CFO to help me run my numbers, maybe I need a business coach to help me make sure that I'm being strategic about the way that I'm setting things up. When you are starting to build that bench of professional advisors, an attorney should be on that list. And here's a couple reasons why. So an attorney is going to help you make sure that you are not being taken advantage of. And I don't think that most people are trying to be jerks or trying to take advantage of people, but I see over and over come across my desk for review terrible deals that I say, please do not sign this. You're giving away all your rights, or you're not getting paid enough, or they're going to require you to do all these things, or they're going to have you locked in. We saw one with a 10-year term for a brand new technology, and I was like, this is bananas. So an attorney who has expertise in your field and actually knows what's normal and what's not, they are going to make sure that you are entering into good deals. They are really, and I consider myself as much a business advisor as a legal advisor. They're going to help you make sure that you are making good deals. And then they're going to paper it and make sure it's also legal. They're going to help you make sure that you understand what you're signing. So frankly, for our retainer clients who just kind of send us everything that they might sign, we look at a lot of contracts. We often will not even edit them or will not even suggest changes. We will just say, hey, I want to point out these 3 things and make sure this is what you agreed to. Or like, this is a little weird. Like, are you sure that's what you want? A lot of the times it's just explaining the legalese or making sure that they, kind of understand what they're getting into. So that is a huge advantage to having a lawyer, especially if you are working with a giant brand on the other side. I see this a lot with influencers who are working with a big brand. They don't understand the legalese in the contract, and they could sign things that really give away a lot of their rights. And that is kind of my closing point. As an intellectual property attorney, I'm always looking at things with an eye for making sure that key asset, which in an online business is usually the most valuable asset of the business. It's how you're making your money is your intellectual property, your course or your program or your coaching. That's your moneymaker. And so we want to protect that, and we want to make sure that you're not giving it away. We see power grabs all the time. I was reviewing a contract related to a podcast network, and like the ownership of intellectual property term, it was crazy, the grab that they were making for rights. And my client is not an intellectual property attorney. And so she did not understand that. That was certainly not what they had discussed. When I said, hey, is this what you guys agreed to? Because this is a pretty big give. So having an attorney on your side as your business grows and as you are entering into those bigger agreements, the bigger relationships, your profile is rising, you do have more at risk. Now, proportionally, it is time to have a trusted advisor on your team. And that's really what an attorney should be. You should be checking in with them from time to time. You should be telling them all your new crazy ideas and saying, what have I not thought about? Let me just run this by you and make sure it sounds okay. That is really the role that we love to play for our 7- and 8-figure clients as they are running, more and more complicated businesses. It's really fun for us to kind of get our hands in there and be that first phone call to say, hey, I'm thinking about writing a book, or I got an offer to be in a TV show. What do you think? Let's look at this. That's really exciting for us and really fun. All right, so those are my 4 kind of most important lessons, the things that I want you to know and understand as you're building your online business. I feel like it was kind of a manifesto. These are the things that like I would stake my reputation on, that I think are super, super important. So I want to give you a couple next steps as I wrap up. If you have listened to this and you're like, oh my gosh, I just have no idea where to start legally. I'm kind of overwhelmed. I don't even know what should come first. I've got a couple of free things you can do. So 1, listen to season 1 of the podcast. Those first 12 episodes are going to be like a primer that's going to get your wheels spinning. Number 2, sign up for our email list. We are really going to be focusing a lot of our attention and resources on our email list in 2021. You can go do that at awbfirm.com. And check out our Prep to Scale challenge, which is now available. The live challenge is closed, but we've still got it available on our website. For $27, you can purchase that. You can sit down in an hour or so, very bite-sized chunks, go through and figure out where the legal holes are in your business and get started putting those right protections in place. So we'll drop a link to that in the show notes. It's awbfirm.com/fast-track. Now, if you are maybe a little further along and you're like, okay, I know I need to do some things. You're ready to protect your business. You, especially maybe you're seeing, oh, I'm not using a client contract. That's your moneymaker. That's maybe what you want to start with. I encourage you to check out our contract templates. Those are all at awbfirm.com. We have them for all kinds of different businesses, and they are built from my 5 years, our firm's, there's 3 attorneys now, our firm's 5 years of experience working with online and creative entrepreneurs, really putting all of those lessons learned into our templates. And if you're listening and you are maybe already at 6 figures, growing to 7 figures, and you're ready for one-on-one legal support, I invite you to contact us. We would really love to talk to you and see if our firm would be a good fit to be that trusted advisor for you and your business. There's a contact us form on the website. That's a great place to start. You can find that at awbfirm.com. So I'm going to sign off for now, but as I said, please don't be a stranger. Connect with me on Instagram or on Facebook. I would love to stay in touch, and I'm wishing you the best in 2021.